Spring in Space by Daniel Wallace. Sherry and I worked for a large corporation monitoring radio transmissions from a network of satellites and base stations on the moon. Sherry was my wife. All of the information was transmitted wirelessly to the desk console, and there was nothing really we had to do but dust it occasionally. But the job requirements entailed that someone had to be at the desk, eyes on the monitors, awake at all times, 24 hours a day, in case, well, it wasn't clear what the case might be. In case there was an electrical surge or a breakdown of some kind, perhaps. Someone had to be there to fix it if this happened. My wife and I had both been trained in all the necessary tasks, but it never had. The incoming stream of information was constant and braided, connected to a string of other signals all over the world. Were there to be an interruption for even a brief period of time, the entire process could be, this is in the handbook, undermined and/or invalidated. The machine hummed and hummed like the first note of a song that never changed. It was a comforting sound, and the steady green light on the console was reassuring, like coming home late at night and seeing the lights still on. The corporation employed thousands of people doing the same job we did, one no more or less important than the next. We were like a family, but it was a family who never had seen one another and most likely never would. We'd been working for the corporation since 2027. Sometimes Sherry took one 12-hour shift and I would take the second, or we might mix it up and do 4 6-hour shifts, then 6 4, alternating between them. On our 15th wedding anniversary, we did one long 24-hour shift together. We saw the sunset, the moon rise, the sunrise again, and then the moon, every moment of it awake together. Even in the cramped quarters, the room was no bigger than a walk-in closet because of humidity concerns. It was one of the most romantic days of our lives. So anyway, it was a living and a pretty good one. We had a house and a car. We had money to go on trips if we wanted to, but we never went on trips because one of us had to be there to monitor the transmissions. And where would we go? Who went anywhere anymore? The gated hotels were the safest places. The beaches nearly empty there, but at night you could hear small crowds wailing outside the gates. They were too weak to be a threat to anybody, but they could moan their dirges all night long. So we stayed at home and watched the old films on the television and marveled at the splendor of our shiny past, one that was still a fresh memory to us. We did have seasons, though. Spring came, and everything that had left us for the winter returned. All the green on the trees, the birds, the cool, soft air, the dead moths, and the spider's eggs hanging in webs as white as hair, and dead brown leaves caught between the 2 windowsills. One day we decided to go on a walk together, but not so far that we couldn't hear the hum of the machines. We hadn't gone on a walk together for 7 years, but because nothing had happened in all that time, that seemed to necessitate our presence, we felt okay about it. We could leave the room for a few minutes to take a walk through the woods on a beautiful spring day. We held hands. We kicked at leaves and sticks and laughed at nothing, just laughed, as if it were a spontaneous thing, like breathing. But I knew it came from being alive and holding the hand of the person you love the most and walking through the woods with her. The sound of joy. How long were we gone? I have no idea. But we walked farther than we had meant to, and when we returned, found that something had gone very wrong. The console was making a high-pitched screeching sound. We had to cover our ears to be in the room, and even so, it felt as though the sound cut into our brains. Lights everywhere, the monitors flashing red, then yellow, then blue. It felt like the end of the world. Then, in a heartbeat, it all stopped. All of it. The lights died. There was silence, complete and overwhelming silence for the first time in years. We didn't move. We didn't even breathe. Finally, the green light on the console reappeared. It blinked 3 times, then turned solid green and stayed that way. The machine started humming again, humming its forever song. It was all so beautiful. Sherry and I held on to each other and laughed until we cried. And it all began again.